about, because you guys at The Intercept done, and everything legislative now has to be, okayed and signed off by President Manchin. You guys did have done over the past couple of years, I guess year and a half or so, some great reporting on Joe Manchin. Everything I know about his daughter's sort of like trajectory and getting her her University of West Virginia sort of bona fides, and then her getting a job where she's gouging people with insulin was a function of your reporting. And there was and his lobbying as he became governor on behalf of the coal-fired power plant that he ended up being his sole customer of his gobe or gob or whatever they call it.
Yes.
There was a piece that filled in some of the other parts of this in the New York Times, incredibly well reported. And it seems to me that, like, if you are a state senator and you are lobbying on behalf of a coal-fired power plant to get a waiver because it's going to be spewing out more mercury close to another power plant that's also spewing out mercury, and you buy an old mine on a Tuesday in the morning that is going to provide all of this coal to that same power plant and then sell it to that same power plant that same day for $120,000 more, and then make a subsequent deal later to get a 1% sort of vig on everything they ever sell, the power they sell there, that to me seems incredibly corrupt. And where is, like, how do we call the cops? Where do we dial 911 to? Because this guy's just showing up at work every day, and it seems to me that
like Will Smith just ssitting down at the table.
Yeah, except for we're starting to see some, blowback on that. I know you want to get the slap in there, but honestly, like, is this like the Department of Justice? Like, I don't think it's going to happen in West Virginia. But I mean, isn't there somebody who's going to come in? Like, isn't there? I know that in New York State, it was the Eastern District of Manhattan at the USA's office that would do public corruption. Shouldn't there be a U.S. Attorney's office in West Virginia that is going like, hey, wait a second, what's the statute of limitations on this? Maybe there isn't one, and let's look into this.
Yeah, and Daniel Boguslaw has another piece up for us a couple of weeks ago that lays out the different attempts by federal authorities to probe people in his inner circle, and including related to, so you laid out all of that insane corruption. Then later, as governor, he pushed for and successfully got a rate increase on his own neighborhood, like his people, not just West Virginians, but particularly his home base. He pushed through a rate increase. So people every single month were paying money, extra money, for this gob that he was pumping out of the ground and then getting 1% on the other end.
Yes, it's amazing. Like, he's like, every dollar that he approved, he would get a penny of that back
just from that. And then he was also selling it. Right.
And he was selling it all in the first place.
And without the rate increase.
The rate increase was because we're using substandard coal. So we need to increase our rate. Right. We get that substandard coal. Oh,
his thing would have gone bankrupt without that. Yeah. Yeah, he would be. His whole operation would not have been financially kind of reasonable without that rate increase. Because it's crap.
So, have you sent a reporter down to West Virginia's U.S. Attorney's office and say, like, what are you guys doing about this?
We've had a guy there for a couple of weeks. One of the prosecutors who looked into this then became like a Manchin ally after deciding not to.
Oh, that's weird.
Not to push charges. That's in one of the stories. So yeah, how about that? Isn't that neat?
Also, now where is his job? I mean, one can only imagine how that has benefited them. It really is just, it is just amazing the level of corruption that this is. And
it's comical. Like if this was going on in any other country, we would just be laughing at like the banana corruption level of it. the Banana Republic level of it. We're like, this isn't even like trying. Like, in the U.S., we do our corruption in a sophisticated way where we call it campaign contributions, and we have lobbyists, and we hire people after they're done their jobs. That's like the first world impressive way to do, sophisticated way to do corruption. This isn't even that. This is just straight up.
Is it because his name's not Trump, or is it because this is happening on a state level and we just don't comprehend like like how that level of corruption?
Yeah, I think West Virginia has the resource curse type of corruption that you see in all these other countries that are, fossil fuel based, that where all of the power is around this resource and your relationship to that resource. And so the politics just becomes like insanely corrupt. And you see that pattern play out in, almost everywhere, not quite everywhere, but almost everywhere that pumps a lot of kind of just money out of the ground. And it's West Virginia, so nobody cares. It's like, no, it's part of that kind of bias against Appalachia. That there's very little media. It was the Pittsburgh paper is the one that had to bust his daughter, faking having an executive master's degree, because Pittsburgh's pretty close to that area. So
let me ask you this: in terms of and this is a little bit afield from that, but maybe not. Do you think that we're going to see political reporters who basically attribute Joe Manchin's votes and proclamations to a moderate ideology or whatever that is, supposedly, or a lack of ideology, but that it's, and even they know it's an ideology, right? They're saying he's a moderate or a conservative Democrat, whatever it is. Do you think at one point they're just going to say he's just corrupt and everything he does is either a direct result of his corruption or as a fig leaf for his corruption?
I mean, you're starting to see some of it. You've started to see at least in some print articles. Like the Times did that big investigative piece, which is great. What's even better is if they start to incorporate that into their other piece, because you've seen this pattern a ton, where the Times will do some incredible investigative journalism, but then their daily coverage will just continue as if that awesome piece that might win a Pulitzer, never even happened.
Right. Joe Manchin is very worried about inflation. Therefore, he doesn't want gobe to be out, to be it's regulated.
Did you read your Sunday paper?
Right. It has nothing to do with the money he's making from it.
That we wrote about 2 days ago. But so you actually are starting to see the normal coverage start to refer to his coal holdings and his coal business. He's been asked about it a couple times in the hallway, but there's a politeness element to it where it's just untoward. Like you're not supposed to question the motivations, and this is a bipartisan thing. Like parties are like there's still this norm that you can say whatever you want about your opponent, but you shouldn't question their motivations. And by motivations, they mean donors and
I feel
money.
like Sherrod Brown came very close to saying it, but couldn't even say the words. Right. I can't remember the context, but it happened about a month and a half ago. He's
right.
Like,
they get very close to it, and then they start to get euphemistic. And one reporter who pressed him very directly on it, Manchin just said, "You best change the subject,
or I'm going to run you over with my Maserati."
push you into traffic on Constitution Avenue. I don't know. Well, he did save Arthur Delaney from getting run over on Constitution Avenue.
Oh, is that right?
No, I didn't. Yeah, it was this big scrum, and Arthur wasn't looking, and the scrum's crossing Constitution Avenue, and there's some taxis barreling down, and Manchin grabbed him and pulled him back.
There you go.
2 weeks later, then Manchin yelled at him and said, "You have no idea what you're talking about, and how dare you?" And it's so.
Well,
but yeah, that's if you push. You get told, he'll point at you like he pointed at this reporter like a student who had stepped out of line or something.
And here is the fundamental dilemma right now that the Democrats have is that with all of what I've just said, Joe Manchin still makes the difference in terms of like a Supreme Court seat. Joe Manchin still makes the difference in terms of what 100 federal judges that have been sat. Joe Manchin still makes the difference in terms of getting, most funding the government, getting most of the of Biden's nominees there. I mean, this is, it just seems to me that maybe this is, again, a failure of leadership. It's one thing to be polite in public, but it's another, there's no reason why Chuck Schumer can't be walking down to Joe and go, Joe, like, look, I'm getting so much grief about what's going on in your home state. Like, you got to give me a little bit more to work with here, buddy.
And he's like, do I have to give you more, Chuck?
Well, then Chuck goes, actually, no. Okay. You're fine.
Yes. Never mind.
Can I get you a sandwich? Or maybe, do you need your cleaning taken out? Let me see if I can get your cleaning done. That's the problem, right? I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And right. The only time that if they were going to discipline him, it would be when they're already in the minority, when they don't have anything to take from him.
Right. Well,
this is a case where the power dynamics are defined by there being 50 senators. Like if there were 52, and people say, "Oh, you just want more Democrats." No, if there were 52, he has less power.
Yep.
Like then he has to organize Sinema and the other two, but then Schumer can individually go. Let's say there's 4 like Manchin type figures. But then Schumer can individually go to each one and be
Schumer
like, hey,
has the ability to put one of them in the fulcrum essentially and say like, you're the swing vote, not him. He's gone.
Right. And what do you want? What do you want for being a swing vote? What do you want? Because like there's going to be a $1 billion that builds a needless weapons factory in somebody's state.
Exactly.
Who's going to get it?
Yep.
Because somebody's going to get it. Is it going to be you?